Hello, gazers.
Hello, gazers.
How are we all? I'm just opening a bottle of fizz.
Yeah, come on.
Because we're kind of still celebrating, aren't we? We're still on a little high from our Radio Times review.
Radio Times review. We're in the Radio Times.
Radio
Times. So a little celebration. Thank you again to you lovely people.
Yes, and if we do have any new listeners from the Radio Times review, welcome. Thank you for listening to us.
Yeah.
Oh, hang on. Here we go.
Hold on.
Oh, there we go. Anti-spillage coops are out again.
Already?
There we go.
While David's pouring, I'm Dr. Lee Arnott, social historian, and this is Dave Moor, TV producer director.
And we are the Problematic Gays.
Hello, cheers. Chin chin.
Chin chin.
Was that a good enough chink?
I think so.
More of a dull thud. Oh. Okay, we'll just go with that.
Okay, yeah, we do like to have a little bit of fizz every now and again.
That's slipping down a treat. Yes, so here at the Problematic Gays, each episode we'll take a piece of pop culture from the last 60-odd years and ask ourselves the questions, could you get away with it today? And if not, why not? And what that says about how society and culture have changed since then.
Before we take a deep dive into our chosen topic of the week, we'll take a look at the news events of the day, the TV landscape and the pop charts, just to see what was going on the date that our chosen topic landed in the cultural landscape.
Bit of context.
Bit of context. That's the word I was looking for.
Bit of context.
And struggling with.
You got it. You got there.
Yeah.
You got there.
And before we go any further, we'd just like to say that if you click that follow button right now, you'd really help us to spread the word of the Problematic Gays, because we are an independent podcast. We do everything ourselves, all our research, all our recording, all our editing, all our promotion.
All our drinking.
All our drinking.
Yeah.
At least we don't have to share our champagne with anybody.
Thank God.
To get reviews as we've been doing, I think it's no mean feat. So
Absolutely. But it does mean a lot to us. Tell all your friends. It means the world to us, really. Now then, now, Dave.
Oh my God, it's back. The Exorcist is back in the room.
I can only apologise in advance. You know there's going to be a lot of this in today's episode.
Yeah. Now, did you do your vocal warm-ups as I advised?
Yes, I did.
If you're going to start doing Cilla Black impressions, left, right and centre.
Cilla's inside me.
What a wonderful visual picture you're painting for our gazers out there.
This talk of Cilla, why, Dave? Why? Tell the gazers.
This week, we're going to take a deep dive into Blind Date.
Come on.
The TV game show juggernaut from the 80s, 90s.
Now, gazers, I don't know about you, but have you ever wondered how you find true love in the days of social media and, swipe left, swipe right? Well, maybe take a trip back to the 80s and 90s to see how it was done then. Because Blind Date offers an interesting snapshot, doesn't it, of bygone days.
Oh, my goodness. It so does. We picked an episode from 1996, didn't we? So this was a good few years into its run. I think it ran for 18 years altogether.
Yeah. We're definitely the tail end of the Blind Date years, aren't we, in this?
Yes. We thought 1996, we haven't delved into that year before, have we? No. So 1996 it is. Just imagine you're getting yourself ready on a Saturday night to go out and paint the town red.
Yeah.
Got the telly on in the background, and there's our Cilla and our Graham with all these plucky hopefuls searching for love.
Yeah. Searching, looking for love.
Oh, Hazel Dean's come out now as well.
That's the fizz.
Yeah.
Fizz brings out the hazel. So what's your relationship with Blind Date? Is that?
Well, it is. I mean, I remember prior to the days where I used to go out gallivanting about the town, I used to go up to my grandma's as a younger child. In the 80s, what did we watch on a Saturday night? Blind Date.
Yeah.
Yes. I remember it being fun.
Yeah.
Quite light-hearted, shiny floor show for Saturday night.
Yeah, the same. Watched it as a kid, and then it was on TV on our way to getting ready to go out on a Saturday night, Should we cross over to the news desk and see what was happening in 1996?
So the episode of Blind Date we're going to be looking at was first transmitted on the 19th of October, 1996. So what were the news events of 1996, Lee?
Well, on the 4th of February, this sounds really dull, but I think it's quite an interesting point. The first two passenger train operating companies began operation of their service franchise as part of the privatisation of British Rail. Now, the privatisation...
Sorry.
I know. It's quite dull, but privatisation of British Rail. Hello, this is a professional podcast. Has been talked about for decades. And do you remember how much of a joke British Rail had become? And it was kind of like the services were always shit, overcrowded, the toilets were minging, the food was terrible, blah, blah, blah. And privatisation was supposed to transform it all and make it so much better than it was. Cut to 2025. How's privatisation worked out? And the other big complicating factor is, rather than just divvying up this national network, they also make ownership of the actual rails themselves part of a different company. So it becomes this really complicated system of interconnecting companies that don't connect up at all. And this is where it starts, 1996.
So do you think that people have got a romanticised notion or a false memory of what British Rail was like?
It's interesting because British Rail could genuinely be a bit cruddy. I'm not the best person to ask because both my granddads worked for British Rail. So, of course, we always thought it was the best thing. We didn't need a car because we got the trains, you know. I do think it shows that it just didn't work, you know, and it's just made it incredibly expensive. It's never had any money pulled back into the services, you know. So, like a lot of things that have been privatised, water companies, I'm looking at you, it's all turned out to be a crock of shit, that certain people have got richer while the service they're in charge of has got worse.
It's a sad indictment, really, of the state of Britain at the moment. Everything kind of does feel as though it's breaking down and, you know, services are crumbling, etc.
Yes.
And this is where it started for the trains.
Yes, absolutely.
On the 9th of February, the Provisional IRA carry out a Docklands bombing in London. A truck bomb kills 2 men and injures 39 people. This incident ends the 17-month ceasefire in Northern Ireland. And then on the 18th of February, another IRA bomb explodes on the bus in central London, injuring 8 other people, including the driver.
We've often mentioned IRA stuff that's going on, so it's still happening in 1996, isn't it?
Yeah.
I hadn't been long in London. My first experience of living somewhere where this stuff could happen, and that bus explosion was in Holborn, I think, and I used to work relatively close to there, and it was like, God, it really made you stop and think, but it's also the first time it makes you realise you've just got to get on with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else can you do?
Yeah. It's a big year for the royals, 1996. On the 28th of February, Diana, Princess of Wales, agrees to give Charles a divorce 3 years after separating and not long after saying they weren't going to get a divorce. In April, the Duke and Duchess of York are divorced after 10 years of marriage and 4 years after their separation. And then in August, Diana and Charles complete their divorce proceedings after 15 years of marriage. Diana loses her title of Royal Highness and assumes the title Diana, Princess of Wales. The fairy tale is over.
Fairy tale is over, if it ever began.
Well, exactly.
I wonder what Diana would think of Harry and Meghan.
She'd love him, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think it would ever have got that far if Diana had still been around, you know.
What got what for? The negative press about Meghan.
Well, the rift I was talking about.
Oh, the rift, of course. Yeah.
Harry and Wills and Charles. It's all so turgid, isn't it?
I like to call Charles Chuck.
All right, Cilla. Cilla's looming large, isn't she?
She can't help herself. Oh, I'm so dreadful. More dreadful news, the 20th of May. Actor and comedian John Pertwee. Third Doctor Who, of course. Wurzel Gummidge, legend. Also pretty cool all-round guy, really.
Yeah.
If you look at his pictures, he had a house in Ibiza back in the day.
Did he?
Yeah, back in the 70s before Ibiza.
He always seems pretty cool.
Yeah, and he'd have these amazing outfits on, medallions, you know, he just looked really cool. Dies of a heart attack, age 76.
On the 19th of June, the government selects the Greenwich Peninsula site on the banks of the River Thames as the location for the Millennium Dome exhibition, which is set to open for the year 2000.
Yes, yeah, it's just a big old industrial wasteland at that point, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's actually in the 1988 Doctor Who they filmed there, so you can see what it's like. If you're interested, go and watch Silver Nemesis on the iPlayer, and that will show you what it was like before the regeneration of the area.
And then there was a big fanfare, wasn't there, when the Millennium Dome was open?
Yes.
And it was all kind of exhibitions through the body, exhibitions of the history of the UK and etc. But it just looked dull, didn't it?
Yeah. Have you ever seen the video Xanadu by Olivia Newton-John?
Yeah.
In that video, they just throw everything in there. You've got people on tight ropes, you've got people skating around on roller skates, you've got drummers, you've got this, you've got this. I think it's a bit like a video representation of the Millennium Dome. Throw everything at it, it's all a bit naff, and nothing really sticks and doesn't cohere in any shape or form at all.
No.
5th of July, Dolly the sheep, the first mammal to have been successfully cloned from an adult cell, is born at the Roslin Institute. Dolly.
Dolly got sick, didn't she?
She did get sick. Grew 2 heads and then snuffed it. It's like, yeah, cloning's completely safe.
Is that factually accurate? Oh, I might need to get another top up in a minute.
Yeah, I know. I'll polish through that, haven't we?
Yeah. On the 30th of November, the Stone of Scone is installed in Edinburgh Castle 700 years after it was removed from Scotland by King Edward I of England. I don't know what any of that means.
Well, it's a very symbolic moment because Edward I basically kicked the shit out of Scotland. The Stone of Scone was like this highly symbolic stone for Scotland. It was like nicking Excalibur or something.
Right.
And he brings it, and it was in Westminster Abbey. So 96, 97 is when Welsh and Scottish devolution are really being talked about for the first time properly. And it's been not a slow, but quite a protracted falling out. And this is a highly symbolic moment because this is something that was ostensibly Scottish being returned back to Scotland. And it's a bit of a wake-up call for England, which starts, I think, well, why don't they like us? You know, what's the problem here when England's pretty much treated them like shit for hundreds of years?
Sorry, I just glazed over a little bit then.
Well, that's nice, isn't it? That's a nice thing to tell our Scottish listeners. I'd like to apologise to the Tartan Army.
I apologise to Scotland.
We will always be free.
Moving on quite swiftly. More than 4% of the UK population, some 2.5 million people, now have internet access in 1996.
4%. Yeah.
4%.
And that'll be old dial-up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you like to give me a little top up?
All right then, hold your hand steady. Don't shake. Don't shake. It's the John Lewis futon, remember?
So, should we have a look at what the telly landscape was of 1996?
We're talking about 29 years ago. Oh, I need another drink. Hang on. It's like it was yesterday, innit?
Like it was yesterday. And I remember more about 1996 than I do about yesterday.
I know. God, we're old, aren't we?
We have to face the fact that we are of a certain age now.
But that appeals to our gazers out there.
Yes, it does.
Our gazers are ladies and gays primarily of a certain age, aren't they?
Most of them.
We do attract the youngsters as well.
No, we don't. Youngsters, are you attracting?
When I say youngsters, I mean people in their 20s and 30s. Not the youngsters.
I want policemen looking younger these days. Anyway, top 10 programmes of 1996.
Number 10, National Lottery Live.
Wow. 16.62 million viewers.
I mean, it's only a couple of years old, the lottery. It's about 1994 that it came out.
Yeah, it was.
Do you remember that big brouhaha about the lottery and everybody?
I thought I was going to win.
Yeah, I thought I was going to win.
win.
So it was like for months and months and weeks. It was all gearing up to it. So we all got our lottery ticket on the first night, didn't we?
Yes, we did. Watched this half an hour show.
Yeah.
Basically, which working up to like a 30-second draw.
Already working out how to spend our millions.
Yeah.
Numbers were called out.
Yes.
Fuck all.
Blugger all.
Like somebody put a pin in a very large balloon that night.
I remember ringing my mum and we were like, did you watch the lottery? Yeah, it was quite exciting, wasn't it? You know, then very quickly the rot sets in when you realise when you've got a 1 in however million chance of winning. So
someone's got to win it.
Someone's got to win it. Also, this is just the cusp of Sky TV starting to really dominate the market of TV. I think they've just bought the rights to football, which is going to really amplify the market for Sky Television. So we're still seeing big figures for the main 4 channels at this point. Number 9. You've Been Framed. Now, isn't it funny as well? Now I do like a fail on the YouTube fail compilation.
Yeah.
Exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
But you just don't need a narrator and an advert break and someone to compile them thematically.
Well, that's Jeremy Beadle out of a job.
Well, it is, to be fair. But do you remember, you know, we've talked about It'll Be All Right on the Night before. I can't remember which episode. Of our many back catalogue new Radio Times listeners.
Yes.
Please go and dip in. Not the beginning ones, though.
Yeah, yeah, we're a bit shit.
Yeah, and I'm in a wardrobe.
Finding our feet.
Yes. I remember when You've Been Framed started, my mum, again, very excited because the only mistakes you saw and fails were from It'll Be All Right on the Night clips. So to suddenly see ordinary people, and of course this is because of VHS and home cameras, obviously, was mind-blowing. It was people like us making the mistakes, falling down the stairs, sitting in a pile of dog shit, all this kind of stuff. It was kind of revolutionary, you know, and look where we are today.
Do you know what I hate more than anything?
People.
apart from general population.
Yeah.
On TikTok, Instagram and Facebook, wherever you get your scrolling habits from, is very clearly set up arguments between people.
Yeah.
Someone knocking on the car window and winding down and saying, what are you doing parking here? Kind of thing. And it's just like, take us for fools.
Yeah. We did fake a video for You've Been Framed when I was a student.
Did you?
Yeah. Came down the stairs into the living room of the student house where my two friends, Mel and Trudy, were. I was supposed to do this kind of seductive wrapping my leg around the bottom of the door and then fall into the living room. And we did it about 3 or 4 times. Sent it off, never heard a thing. We both thought we were going to get 250 quid.
There was probably just someone sat in an edit suite, fagging out the gob going, that was set up, that was.
Yeah, probably. It's also like my Stars in the Rise audition as Barry Gibb. You know, never heard a thing. You go to the effort of making something, of putting it together, and what does showbiz give you back? Diddly squat.
Big massive slap in the face.
Massive slap in the face.
Do you think it might be the universe trying to tell you something?
What's at number 8?
Let's have a look. Okay. Euro 96, England versus Germany. I remember this, going out to the nightclubs and sitting there with beer, and it wasn't that one. It was England versus Argentina when David Beckham got sent off, wasn't it? Because he kicked somebody in the shin when he was lying on the floor.
You're literally speaking in tongues.
And then David Beckham, who was like the national hero, turned into the national pariah. Anyway, it was some football match or other. Who knows?
Football is still massive on telly, isn't it?
Yeah.
Still huge. It's the one of the things that these guarantees a massive audience. One Foot in the Grave at number 7.
Do you remember the very first episode of One Foot in the Grave?
I can't really.
No, you don't.
No.
I do. He was a doorman of a really posh hotel in London, and this guy got out of the taxi, this posh guy, and was just really condescending and rude to Victor Meldrew. So Victor Meldrew got his wig and threw it down a drain. Instant hit from that very first episode.
Sorry, I just glazed over.
Oh. Okay, if you haven't glazed over before, you might do now.
Number 6, Heartbeat. We talked about Heartbeat relatively recently. Gloss over that. Yes, I know it was filmed where you are, Dave. We don't need to know again.
Yeah, also filmed in Yorkshire.
Touch of Frost. We've talked about that. Never watch it. Listen, the top 4 are as you'd expect, wouldn't you?
Yeah, number 4, EastEnders. Number 3, Casualty. Number 2, Coronation Street.
And number 1, Christmas special, Only Fools and Horses.
Yeah, had to be done.
Standard. David
Jason Riding High, Touch of Frost, and Only Fools and Horses.
There were some notable debuts, telly debuts in the year 1996. Do you want to know a couple of them?
Go on then.
BBC One, we have Ballykiss Angel. Whimsical Scottish comedy. Never watched it. Hugely popular. Silent Witness begins in 1996.
Wow.
That's nearly
29 years ago. Stay with us.
Which makes it nearly
29 years ago. Yeah.
30.
Yeah.
Airport, forerunner reality TV show, starts 96. Tying in with You Been Framed, making shows out of ordinary people. Airport's one of the first that makes stars of the staff. 7th of May, the Doctor Who TV movie with Paul McGann is broadcast. Never goes to series, obviously, even though hugely popular in the UK. The 14th of November, Crocodile Shoes 2. Remember Jimmy Nail?
Yeah.
My Uncle Ed was an extra in that.
Yeah, Jimmy Nail.
Alfie Sane Pet, obviously.
Yeah, which he was fantastic in. There's no denying that.
Yeah.
But he just, like, career trajectory was just... It was unique, I would say, because, I mean, obviously then he appears in Evita with Madonna.
Does he really?
Yeah.
Gosh,
and then
he was in Evita?
He was Augustine Magaldi.
Actually, I've not seen it. I don't know what you're talking about. So. Was it a big part?
No, well, he played a singer that wasn't supposed to be very good. Evita's first rung on the ladder to fame, because obviously Evita was accused of being a kind of social climber, using her sex to... Get to the next run.
Standard
get to the next
things
run.
thrown at as a woman.
Yes, because she's a woman, and obviously she has to use sex to sleep her way to the top. She can't use her intelligence, obviously.
Or talent.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. And then on BBC Two, some more notable debuts. 15th of January, Our Friends in the North.
Love that show.
Yeah. Dodgy Wigs, I remember.
Dodgy Wigs. Really shamefully dodgy wigs. I loved it because obviously set in Newcastle. A lovely Gina McKee comes from not far from Morpeth, actually, my little hometown. So I always felt an affinity with her. So did Heather Mills, but... less of an affinity with our Heather.
And then This Life debuts. loved this
That
live.
was amazing. We need to do this live.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I've got a couple of connections to this live.
Have
I
you?
worked with Louisa Bradshaw-White, who played Kira, who was just like the funky,
Yes, the
cool
secretary,
one.
receptionist.
Yes.
Yeah.
Had an affair with
Stephen John Shepherd,
who I've also worked with.
who Jax was in the play with and said he was lovely.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
Yes. And Daniela Nardini,
yeah.
who played Anna.
Yes.
And I worked with her on a show once, and I was really nervous about meeting her because I was such a big fan.
Yeah.
And she was very nice. She was just very quiet, actually.
Right.
Kept herself to herself.
Yes.
I didn't do the whole, I really loved you in this live, because I kept it professional. But inside I was shaking a little bit. It's Anna from this live. I mean, she was kind of like the modern day heroine, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was.
Also making a notable debut on BBC Two, Changing Rooms.
Wow.
We just posted a little clip about Changing Rooms, haven't we?
Did. Yeah, we did. And we don't need to talk about Linda Parker and the teapots again, but
No.
Linda Parker and the teapots.
Yes.
If you know, you know.
If you know,
if
you
you don't, get onto YouTube and watch it.
Yeah. And then on Channel 4, TFI Friday, which went from 96 to 2000. That was an anarchic, wasn't it, Chris
Yes.
Evans? Friday, tea time, kickstart the weekend.
Kickstart the weekend, yeah. TFI Friday, Top of the Pops with Demi on BBC One, because Top of the Pops had moved to Fridays by that point.
And then you were on your way out to kick the shit out of Friday night.
Yes, you were. And wake up crying on Saturday.
Yeah. And then doing it all again.
Yeah.
Those were back in the days when one night didn't completely ruin you for the next 3 days.
No, even 4 nights didn't completely ruin you for the next 2 days.
Your young, live body could bounce back.
If there are any young listeners out there, make the most of it, kids.
Make the most of
Yeah.
it.
Youth is wasted on the young, love.
It is.
Yeah.
Mind you, if we had our time again, we'd still be kicking shit out of the weekend.
Yeah, but we wouldn't appreciate it. That's the problem. You don't
Yes.
appreciate that you can at the time, do
Yeah.
you?
Yeah.
Oh, the sands of time trickling through our fingers as we speak, love.
Do you want a top up?
Yeah. Right, shall we have a look at the top 20 music, Dave?
Let's do it. So this is the official singles chart, week commencing 13th of the 10th, 1996.
How confident are you about knowing these?
I think I'm probably fairly confident, actually. We're going to know quite a few of these.
I'm opposite because I've recently been watching Top of the Pops on BBC 4 and it's currently from 97 it is now. But the 96 ones I've just been like, what the fuck is this? What the fuck is this? What the fuck is this? So let's see, shall we? Let's see.
Number 20, Oh What a Night, Clock.
Cover.
Shitty
cover. Shitty 90s cover. There's a lot of shitty 90s
There's a
cover, aren't
lot
there?
of covers in the 90s, isn't there? Okay.
I mean, Stamp, Jeremy Healy and Amos at number 19. No.
Come on, kids. Boo Radleys.
No, them's another song.
No.
Don't You Want Me, Felix? Is that another cover?
No, that's a Stone Cold classic, that one.
Is it? Oh, yeah. Don't you want me, don't you? Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, it is. Yeah. Oh, I felt a bit of a gun coming on there, darling.
Taking you back.
Yeah.
Drug-induced whiplash. Let's not divulge all our secrets
Not
to our
all of
gazers.
them. Keep some things back, like Mona Lisa. Let's
Yes.
let's keep the enigma.
How's that champagne going down?
Let's keep the enigma going.
Yes.
Yeah.
Chuck. Oh my God, he's out of control, gazers.
Cilla's waiting.
Might need to send out a distress signal soon. Okay, 16, Escaping, Dina Carroll.
If only. 15, Six Underground, Sneaker Pimps. I love that song.
Yeah, it's
and
great.
my flatmate at the time was really good mates with the drummer from Sneaker Pimps.
Oh.
And he came round, and then we saw him on MTV. It was like, him. Yeah.
Early claim to fame, if ever there was
Early
one.
claim to fame.
Number 14, Love to Love, Damage.
Do you think that's a cover of the Tina Charles classic?
Don't know. Isn't Jade from Damage is married to Emma Bunton?
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
who I met in the pub once.
All
remember?
right. We know.
Yeah,
we
when
know.
I almost wet myself.
LL Cool J, number 13 with Loungin'.
Cool.
Loungin' with LL Cool J.
Number 12, Dill Cheese, brackets My Heart by Billy Sagoo.
Billy Sagoo.
Do you know him?
Nah.
No.
Number 11, Ready or Not, Fugees.
Yeah.
Obviously we know that one.
Yeah. Number 10, 7 Days and 1 Week, BBE. I think we would know that one if it came on. It's a bit of a gurney one, that
Is
one.
it?
Yeah.
Lucky I can't remember it, because otherwise I'd be going again. Yeah. Number 9, No Diggity, Blackstreet featuring Dr. Dre.
Yes, we know that one.
Yeah, I know that one.
Number 8, Trippin', Mark Morrison.
I Love You Always on the Lewis, number 7. Don't know.
Number 6, You're Gorgeous.
Thanks, darling.
That's the name of the song.
Bastard.
Baby Bird.
I like that song. Mm-hmm. But I always felt a bit sad because I never thought anybody would sing it to me. And nobody ever has.
My sister had a boyfriend at the time and he used to sing You're Gormless to her.
So close. Poor cat.
Oh, Cat.
Oh, Cat. Shout out to Cat again.
Hi, Cat, out there in
You're right,
España.
love, in España. Viva.
Yes.
Yeah. She won't be listening, will she? She hates you. All the trauma you've inflicted on her over the years.
Oh, it's the whole stereophonics incident again.
Well, exactly.
Yeah, no, but she will speak to me.
That bitterness runs deep, love. I'll live with her for a bit, I know.
Number 5, Rotterdam, beautiful south.
That was a pub quiz question I answered last night.
Were you out in the pub last night?
No, I was doing it on YouTube.
Oh, fine. I don't remember giving you permission to go out last night.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got my tag on. You could have monitored me. Number 4, Setting Sun, Chemical Brothers.
Yes.
Don't know it.
I know that one because I'm down with the kids. Number 3, It's All Coming Back to Me Now, Celine Dion.
Right. Is it though? Number 2, Breakfast at Tiffany's, Deep Blue Something. No, that one.
Yes, that he kind of came and went, didn't he?
I thought it was a group.
Mr. Deep Blue Something.
Good. Should we have a look at what was number 1?
Yes, let's do it. Choreographical Wonder Kids.
Yeah.
Boyzone. Actually, they did do dancing.
They did dancing in that first abomination of a video of them on that daytime show in Ireland, which is just once seen.
Yes, Words by Boyzone.
Words, cover of a Bee Gees song, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's covers galore, isn't it?
Covers galore. It's almost like they're waiting for a 5-piece girl group to come along and shake things up a bit. Should we turn our attention to the matter at hand, darling? Blind Date. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
So Blind Date is a British dating game show first produced by London Weekend Television. An unscreened pilot was made with comic Duncan Norvell as presenter, but it was eventually hosted by Cilla Black.
Sorry, who?
Cilla Black.
Thank you.
Who already hosted the LWT series Surprise, Surprise.
Sorry, what?
Surprise, surprise. Okay. Blind Date originally ran on Saturday nights from 30th of November 1985 to the 31st of May 2003 on ITV.
Gosh, 18 years.
That's about the size of it. We could go into the minutiae, but I think everybody in the UK of a certain age will know what Blind Date was and the setup.
It was based on an American show called The Dating Game. So, 3 people behind a screen, 3 boys or 3 girls, then a boy or a girl comes out and asks questions of the people behind the screen and then has to choose someone to go on the date with depending on their answers.
Yes.
Jobs are good.
Yes.
I'll tell you what happens in this episode.
Go on then.
Take 3 girls and 3 boys who really couldn't look more 90s if they tried. Pop them behind a screen and let someone choose who they want to go on the date with. The audience will find it hilarious. Were they being pumped full of drugs? Seriously, I mean, bloody hell. There'll be a catch-up with couples who met the week before, and the voice of our Graham will keep things ticking along nicely, all overseen by the supreme commander of Saturday Night Telly, Cilla Black. And boy, oh boy, does Cilla like a Lorra laughs. Chuck.
She does. Okay, so there are many ways of starting this conversation, but I feel as though we should just start with Cilla Black herself.
Right.
Now,
we shouldn't speak ill of the dead.
We shouldn't speak ill of the dead, but we need to address the
Cillifant in the room.
The Cillifant in the room, that there were various kind of urban legends about Cilla Black not being particularly nice behind the scenes. Now, I will say that in this episode and on Blind Date in general, Cilla Black comes across as extremely watchable, personable, amiable, funny, warm. But then we swap over to the urban legends of Cilla Black.
Which apparently is everything she wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of stuff online.
Yeah.
She is part of the trifecta of the unholy 3 who were the worst that BA staff and cabin crew ever encounter.
Yeah.
Cilla's in there with Joan Collins and Shirley Bassey as the worst, just appallingly behaved, don't you know who I am, celebrities. There are so many horror stories about Cilla. Again, we shouldn't speak ill of the dead. I have a soft spot for her.
Yes.
Because obviously she was one of my roster of 60s chanteurs, along with Lulu and Sandy and Dusty. Yeah. But Cilla, God love her, her voice is appalling. She gets where she is because she knows the Beatles, basically. And she works in the Cavern Club and she's part of that Scouse Mersey beat that's swept up in the 60s. She gets lucky because it's not the talent. But Cilla gets the best instrumentation, in my opinion. She gets the best production, which I think carries her through. But by all accounts was a bit of a horror. There's the funny stories about like how she always had 2 bottles of champagne delivered to the dressing room. She put one in her bag, one would go home with her, and her and Bobby would drink the other one. I just found out that apparently she should take the glasses as well. Yes. Yeah. She amassed a huge collection of champagne glasses at home. So when she had a party, she didn't have to hire any glasses in. Have you got any stories about Cilla?
There was one that I'd read that she bought a house next to a golf course.
Right.
And was horrible to any hapless golfer who hit a ball into her garden. After several years of realising she was fighting a losing battle, because of her reputation, people were purposely hitting golf balls into the back of her garden. She eventually decided, okay, let's throw the towel in and join the golf club ourselves. And upon application, was duly told by the club secretary, who apparently was normally very, very pleasant, to, in uncertain terms, fuck off.
Right.
Whether that's an urban legend, like you say, we can't really speak ill of the dead. There's no smoke without fire in these situations, is there?
As far as I can tell, no one has a good word to say about her. And there's that picture that did the rounds again relatively recently on Twitter, I think it started, when some guy had got to a pub at a reserved table. Cilla was at his reserved table on her own and refused to leave it, even though he was saying, it's my table and there's a photograph of Cilla, a right cob on. I'm not leaving this table.
Back to Blind Date.
Blind Date. She is great.
She
is.
That's
what she does.
Mrs. Saturday Night, isn't she?
She is. And you're right. She's warm. She's funny. She's engaging. Plays it perfectly.
Yeah. She's a pro in that respect.
Yeah, she's a pro.
A proper hostess.
Yes. Yeah.
So obviously she comes on, obviously in this lovely kind of shoulder padded, brocaded.
Yeah.
You know, she always was dressed immaculately for the fashion of the time.
Although I will say the first season of Surprise, Surprise, which some of it's on YouTube, oh my God, the wardrobe's horrendous. At one point she looks like a caterpillar in a sleeping bag. It's like, what the hell?
I mean, by this point that Blind Date started, she was a veteran of the TV world, wasn't she?
Yes,
She'd had her own show.
60s and 70s had her own shows, you know. One of my favourite ever songs, Something Tells Me. That was the theme tune to her 1972 series on ITV, and that became a big chart hit again for her. She was a huge star. As we said, she's great at this. Yeah. She's really good at it.
She's really good. So obviously she comes on, and then we get introduced to 3 ladies who come on behind the screen.
Yes. 3 ladies.
Our Janine from Teesside, who's a student. We have our Sarah from Croydon, who's also a student. And we have our Lucy from Somerset, whose ambition is to possibly marry a farmer or become a policeman or to do some modelling. A lot of things struck me about these girls.
The horrendous clothes.
Horrendous 90s clothes.
Yes, the fucking clothes in this are awful.
They're all very young.
Yeah, they are.
Which I didn't realise.
They all look about 28.
Yes, they do. So they're all literally just turned 20.
Yes.
Now, I don't want to be horrible about Janine, Sarah and Lucy, but this is just kind of like an observation of TV in general in the 90s. Compared to now, teeth.
The teeth, I've written the teeth. It's unbelievable. I mean, Britain used to have a reputation for people having bad teeth. With good reason watching this. And again, I don't want to slag them off, but it just shows that...
But that was quite normal then.
Yeah, I mean, it was.
If you want these 3 ladies on today on a show like Love Island or, whatever.
Oh, my God.
They'll be like, what?
Yeah. And the blokes as well. We're not just being, you know...
Dentistry has come a long way, advanced a long way. You know, ways of improving your teeth. I mean, we can hardly talk, but ways of improving your teeth have really come on as well.
Yes,
you know, the self-whitening kits and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was just kind of the standard in the mid-90s, wasn't it?
I was struck by the teeth and just dreadful clothes. The clothes were awful. Janine is wearing a PVC outfit that Cilla reckons will get her into a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
You know.
Blind Date was getting peak audiences in the late 80s, wasn't it?
Yes.
It felt to me as though this episode, they were sexing it up a bit.
Yeah, totally.
They were asking the ladies to put...
Oh my God, totally.
To wear skimpier outfits and things like that.
Well, I don't think they were asking. I think it was becoming one of the things that there's a chance, and again, this is at the very infancy of celebrity culture, but there's a chance you might get famous. You might get a mention in the tabloids after appearing on this. Amanda Holden goes on Blind Date.
Yeah.
You know, Ed Byrne goes on Blind Date. So the guy who's choosing them was called Owen from Surrey. Loves his disco.
Yes.
And I sort of touched the 70s revival that's going on in 1996. And he does a Robin Gibb impression.
Yes.
And then puts a piece of paper in his mouth in the shape of teeth and looks like Rylan.
Yes, he does.
But it shows you the difference in teeth.
Yes.
I thought, wow.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
he suddenly looks like he's got modern teeth.
Yeah. Now, I've got two things to say about Owen.
It's quite hot, isn't he? Was that one of them?
Quite hot.
Was that one of them?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course it was.
And I have to say, my gaydar tingled a little bit.
So did mine. But then it's just that thing about historical men. I think often the gaydar can tingle a lot.
But maybe he was an early example of a metrosexual man who wasn't afraid to embrace his kind of camp
we're
side.
going to come across that in the next round, aren't we?
Yes.
There's a little hint of 90s metrosexuality.
Yes.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
So he asked them questions.
Yes.
You know, and they reply. And the replies are clearly so scripted by this point.
Yeah.
There's still this kind of British seaside humour.
Yeah.
The audience woo at anything which is slightly suggestive of any kind of hint of sex.
Yeah.
He talks about dinosaurs at one point. One of the contestants says, "You'll be in T-Rex to see." Ooh. And there's a mention of a Turkish bath. Ooh. You know, it's just like they're wooing at anything. Any hint of anybody having any kind of naked fun is wooed at. And also the audience are just fucking hysterical.
Yes.
They are on drugs.
They
They're
will
on
have
crack.
been whipped into shape by a wall
Ted
of man.
Robbins.
Yes.
Ted Robbins, probably.
Was it?
Yeah, he was a... I don't know if it was Ted Robbins on this, but I did an advert for the National Lottery many years ago. Oh. And we got shipped to Bray Studios. And we were in a studio there, and Ted Robbins was the warm-up man. Right. And I have to say... There's me and my friend Mel, the same girl who was on the bottom of the stairs when I did You've Been Framed. And we were just looking around us going, is everyone fucking drugs? What's going on? Because 200 people just in hysterics. And we were just like, what is happening?
Well, going to watch a TV show being recorded was and is still a big deal for a grand majority of the population.
We're just so jaded at that. How many times have we been to Strictly?
Yeah.
How many times have we been to those shows with your husband?
Oh, people will hate us if we say we've been to Strictly lots.
Oh, we have, though, darling, haven't we?
But what I will say about this show, it was pretty staid. There were boundaries that no one crossed. Yes. It wasn't gratuitous.
Yeah.
It wasn't overtly sexual. And even though there was innuendo...
It's tame, isn't it?
It's tame. And it never crossed the line. It's very Saturday night. Yes. You know, we're appealing to a kind of a really broad audience.
Yes,
here,
you can't say anything too bad.
No.
It's the Doctor Who audience, basically. You've got to be family.
So, in terms of problematicness in that way, I don't think this is problematic.
The one thing I think is a little telling is Cilla's treatment of the female contestants compared to the male contestants. And she's a little more sarcastic, she's a little more snarky, a little more patronising, a little more condescending towards the female contestants than she is the male contestants, I noticed. Right. Towards the end, that was very much one of the big criticisms that was being levelled at it. And it was one of the reasons why they were thinking of wrapping it up, because have you ever seen her when she announces live that she's quitting?
Yes.
I mean, that's a Noel Gordon, isn't it?
Yes, that really is.
For listeners who don't know who Noel Gordon is, she was the star of an evening soap called Crossroads, filmed in Birmingham. And she'd been the headline act for like 20 odd years, hadn't she? And she gets sacked unceremoniously. Yes. And so she does this amazing press conference. She comes out like fucking Liz Taylor, doesn't she? And Cilla does the same, pulls it on the production team, a live broadcast. And Cilla says, it's going to be my last season of Blind Date. And the production team are like, oh! What? Because she knew she was getting pushed out. She knew she was getting ditched, elbowed.
Yeah. So once all the questions are asked, we go over to our Graham for a quick reminder. Now, our Graham was famous in his own right,
Yes,
even though
he
we never
was.
saw him. Quick recap. Again, all scripted. So it's all premeditated.
Yeah.
What's gonna happen?
Yeah.
Which we shouldn't really be surprised about, really.
Not now. No. Yeah, not at all.
And then Owen picks Janine and they go for a date in Turkey. Which is pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
date.
And then we cut to who was on last week,
Yes.
Simon and Louise. They went to fucking Mauritius.
Yes. Yes. So we get Simon and Louise back on the sofa. So we get this VT of their time in Mauritius.
Them at the beach, basically.
Indulging in all kinds of water sports. No cultural kind of endeavours, really. It seemed to me as though it was like an advert for the Mauritius Tourist Board, which
Yes.
I'm sure it probably was.
Yeah.
I'm sure by this point, ITV had tie-ins with
Sponsorship
deals.
Yeah.
We'll show Mauritius in all its glory if you give our contestants a free holiday
Yes.
out to Mauritius and
Yeah.
everything. So there's all that kind of... The commercial arm of ITV have quite clearly had a hand in this.
Yeah.
There's no kind of romantic or, individual interactions between the two contestants while they're in Mauritius.
Yeah.
Once the VT ends and we get sat back on the sofa with them, then we have little VTs and snippets, little vox pops of them both talking about what they thought of each other. Like twins.
Jinx!
And it doesn't go well, safe to say.
It doesn't go well, does it? It doesn't go well. Simon's quite easy on the eye.
Yes, he's good looking.
Yeah.
He's a bit full of himself.
Yeah, and he does some dancing at one point.
Yes.
Which is just like... Again, listeners can listen to our Men Behaving Badly episode to listen representations of 90s masculinity, but he represents the 90s bloke, doesn't he?
Yes.
Exactly the same kind of terrible dancer.
Yes.
I mean, you know what they say? Terrible dancer, terrible shag.
Now, I've got a question for you.
I'm a great dancer.
Moving swiftly on.
Fucking Wayne Sleep. Well, sorry, carry on.
Simon and Louise don't get on.
No.
Simon says at one point, she's okay, could have done a lot worse. Big kind of intake of pearl clutching from the audience.
Yeah.
He's properly blown it. Louise is quite clearly unimpressed with Simon's laddish behaviour. So my question to you really is, do you feel that there is a different set of rules for good-looking men?
There's a different set of rules for good-looking people in general, in that their life is much easier. And there's been all kinds of studies that have shown that if you're very attractive, life is much easier for you. People respond better to you. You get away with more things. You have to use less of your personal skills. So
I just wanted to confirm that I wasn't imagining it.
yeah. I mean,
I'm kidding.
he's very
obviously.
handsy with her.
Yes.
I tell you what struck me is when it becomes clear back in the studio that she wasn't that impressed by him at all. He's then got his hands, he's winding her up by touching her.
Yeah.
I mean, you could argue, yes, it's a bit kind of brother-sister thing, but at the same time, it's like, get your fucking hands off, love.
Yeah. Yeah,
egged on by Cilla, egged on by the audience,
That was acceptable back then.
Acceptable. I think what interests me most is how the audience has reacted to the two couples from last week, which we'll get onto for the next couple when they come out.
Yes.
Shall we have a look at the boys?
Yes, let's bring the boys on now. So that was obviously Simon and Louise are sent on their merry way, never
the twain shall meet again.
No, didn't get on.
So the boys come in. We've got Chris from Warwickshire. Now, he describes himself as the perfect 90s man because he loves to cook. I mean, what a shocker.
Wow, he cooks.
Yeah,
a man
he doesn't
who
mind
cooks.
the washing up. He's not so keen on the hoovering.
Yes.
We've got Mikey from Northampton, who's in theatre PR. Little bit camp.
Bing.
Yeah. And we got Paolo from Torquay. Now, Paolo is a Greek Cypriot, which means that Cilla gets to do a funny foreigner impression. Paolo is the funny foreigner.
Yes.
Of a trope we have seen on TV since the 1960s, and is still very much a thing in the 1990s.
But I have to say, he leans into it.
Yes, absolutely, because it's got currency.
Yes.
The funny foreigner is, to the audience of the time, hilarious. Of course he's going to lean into it.
Yeah.
He's the wacky one.
He's the
Let's
Greek.
describe him.
He's the Lothario, or likes to think he is.
Yeah,
isn't
he is.
He strikes me as a bit of a kind of a hapless character, a bit like Manuel was portrayed in 40 Towers, but with a slant of he considers himself to be a Lothario.
Yeah, he has a funny story about two-timing girlfriends who turn out to be sisters. And although the audience are a bit like, ooh, when he says they were sisters, he was two-timing two girls.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Do you know what he's like? He's like, Joe, shut up in your face, Dolce.
Yeah.
You know, it's that kind of funny foreigner template. And I was just thinking, you know, he tells the story about two-timing. And I thought, God, imagine if a girl had told this story in 1996. She should have been sent to the pillory and had rotten tomatoes thrown at her.
Yeah.
You know?
It felt to me as though we were supposed to love him, even though his morals and his attitude towards women in general were very questionable.
They really were.
But it's obviously for a 90s audience sensibility,
completely fine.
Was fun.
Completely fine.
Oh, you're a bit of a one, you aren't you?
Jack the lad. That's what lads are like. That's what they do. You know, it's that kind of essentialism of what blokes and bloke behaviour, you know. So you've got, interestingly, Paolo. At the other end, you've got Chris, the new man.
Yes.
You know?
Good looking. Boring. He just didn't come across as having any gumption about him, really. And then we get our picker, who's Tony from Gwent. Tony with an eye, obviously.
Gets a wolf whistle.
Yes, belly dancer.
Comes in. Yeah, but also a bank manager.
Yes.
And that's a big thing.
Yeah.
She's only 22.
Yeah. That's good
looks
going.
30.
Yeah.
1996. It struck me, you know, Cilla says, oh my God, you're a bank manager, you know, and the fact that she's a woman who's a bank manager is commented on and appreciated by the audience.
Yeah.
And it was like, bloody hell.
But is still asked to do a belly dancing routine.
Yes, obviously.
Yes.
Yes.
It's intelligent, but...
Yes, they'll fit. So let's see your belly dance.
Yeah. So then, obviously, rounds of questions, like, how would you convince me to give you a bank loan?
Yes, it's basically 3 questions with lots of prompts about banking, interest, keep your interest rate up, make a deposit, set for withdrawal, all this.
Yeah.
As you can imagine.
Yeah. And ultimately, Tony picks number 2, Mikey. But throughout the questionings, when Paolo responds to Tony with the questions, he's always going, listen, Tony, listen. I found that just really patronising.
I just find him really annoying.
It's just really annoying, but it's obviously the way he's used to talking to women. It's like, okay, stop talking and listen. Yeah, kind of vibe.
Listen, Tony. What are we doing now? Paolo, friend of the pod.
Friend of the pod, Paolo. If you are a gazer and you are listening, or if any of our gazers know Paolo from Torquay, please get in touch.
Yeah. We'd love to hear. Would we?
Okay, and then they choose a date to Loch Ness.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd be gutted, wouldn't you, if you'd gone through that whole process of auditioning to be on blind dates, going through all that, and then you get a date to Loch Ness. Anyway, back to the people who got dates last week.
Lorraine and Carl.
Back on the sofa.
Yes. They went to Copenhagen. Now, Lorraine doesn't hold back in her criticisms of Carl, does she? She calls him weak. He's a wet wimp. I was really interested in the audience reaction here. Because as soon as she does that, immediately the audience goes on Carl's side.
Yes.
He gets a big cheer when he says she's not a very nice person. And there was a little bit of a witch hunty vibe went on. It made me quite uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because actually it ends up Carl saying just as many shitty things about her as she said about him. But Lorraine is pilloried, isn't she?
Yeah. It did strike me, though, with Lorraine saying all that. Here was a quite early example, I would say. It was the best example out of the whole show of somebody who felt like she could put on a performance to further herself. As in a kind of reaction. Getting a reaction. And maybe, as we talked about, you know, you could get something out of this.
Yeah, being outrageous, being as X as possible in order to... Yeah, absolutely.
Which, when she found out that she was kind of on the back foot, she tried to row it back a little, or was kind of naive in her approach to how she presented herself, and then realised that she'd maybe stepped too far.
Yes.
In that kind of naive way that you feel as though you can manipulate the outcome or manipulate television.
Yes. And back to Carl, the different standards. When it transpires that he was chatting up a Danish girl, there's a big cheer for him. When he says he thinks that he was too good for her, there's a big cheer for him. You can spot this is the infancy of this reality TV that we talked about in our Big Brother episode, when people are starting to become a bit savvy about being on telly, but looking at this, they're still really naive about it. And that was super interesting. But the way that she was kind of shamed for her reactions to him, when actually his reaction to her was exactly the same, and he was egged on and cheered, again, just shows the difference of the expectations of gender at that time, and what women are allowed to do and what men are allowed to do, and what women are supposed to do and what men are supposed to do as well. So that was an interesting
it was very interesting. I felt as though it was kind of, I could have seen Lorraine on a Love Island or of a show like that, where it's all about presenting a version of yourself that is digestible and
it's like today clickbait. You're wanting a reaction, aren't you? You're wanting to draw people in somehow, I guess. Why do you think this show was popular?
I think Cilla Black had a lot to do with it, you know. For all we've talked about her and the urban legends about her, she's a great host. She is an every woman.
She's something you can relate to, isn't she?
Yeah. And I just think the format's good. It's all round entertainment. You can sit there with your gran and watch it. So I think all those elements kind of combine to create a good format, actually.
And I think early on, there was a genuine hope that people would get it on. And one of the running gags was about her having to buy a new hat for a wedding. But I think by this stage, the rot has pretty much said the cynicism is the overriding. We don't want them to get on.
I think it's much more cynical. It felt as though the heart had gone out of it a little bit.
Yes, it very much. It felt hollow. It was just... Everything is clearly scripted. Even the little vignettes of last week's couples are clearly scripted and paving the way for Essex, for Geordie Shore, for all of those shows, you know. So an interesting start of reality TV and how we ended up today where we are. This is kind of one of the starters of it here, isn't it? But it kind of gave me a little bit of an ick because it's so straight. Unexpectedly, but it's so exclusively straight. And even watching it back in the day, I did remember thinking, God, imagine one day if you saw a show that was with people like me, people like us, you know. Of course, now we have those Danny Minogue shows. I kissed a boy, I kissed a girl.
So I think we've reached the end of our blind date. How would you rate this?
I would give it, as a piece of telly, I'd give it like 3 Al Graham voiceovers out of 10.
It's quite damning.
As a 1996 commentary, I'd probably give it 7 Graham voiceovers out of 10. But today, watching it, it was a bit... The girly show is the absolute nadir as far as we're concerned, I guess. And this is a little step above that.
Yes.
Interesting sexual politics in it. What would you give it?
I would probably give it around about the same. Maybe a 4. Just notch it up a little bit. Just for the nostalgia value. Watch Cilla in all her glory.
For better or worse.
For better or worse.
Yeah. It's not even one I'd put on again on a drunk Friday night after a kitchen disco. Do you know what I mean? It's very much consigned to the television bin of history.
So that was Blind Date. Lee, take a little sip of your champagne and gear yourself up to tell us about what we're going to be watching next week.
Having a little sip of champagne is very appropriate, darling, because next week we're talking about the Joan Collins classic, The Stud, from 1978. I'm beside myself. My dog's named after Fontaine Carlid, who is Joan Collins' character in this. I can't wait. I'm quietly confident this is going to be in the so shit it's good category. I can just remember terrible disco scenes, Joan looking amazing. I remember some really dodgy 70s film sex. I can't bear myself.
This is one of your Roman empires, isn't it?
Yes, it is. What's not to love?
What's not to love? So, yes, gazers, we will be watching The Stud next week. Do your gazer homework.
Oliver Tobias, be still my beating heart.
Yeah, and he was hot, wasn't he?
Oh, my God. 10 ladies at the ready, girls.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Maybe put a little plastic sheet down.
Plastic sheet, talcum powder, whatever it takes, kids. Rubber gloves. Speculums.
So that's next week.
That's next week. So what have we learnt today? What lesson for our gazers can we give at the end? You know, if you're feeling down, if you're feeling lonely, gazers, just get out the house, because you know what could happen? Chinchilla Slack could come round and try and pay you up with somebody completely inappropriate.
Yes.
And do you want that, gazers?
And if you are searching for love, gazers,
searching,
then why don't you put your phone down, and arrange a blind date.
Yeah. Oh, actually, subscribe to us first. Maybe send us an email. Subscribe to our TikTok and socials.
Yes.
At Podcast Gaze.
Links in the bio.
And have a blind date. Oh, has anybody got any funny blind date stories they want to share with us? Have you ever been on a blind date?
I can't remember. The gay version of a blind date was probably...
Grinder or Hampstead Heath.
I wasn't going to say that. Just you, obviously.
I don't know what Grinder is or where Hampstead Heath is, actually. I've never been.
Oh, it's just...
it's by the tennis courts. And it's further up the hill. Anyway.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yeah, we wouldn't know about that kind of thing. It's we're pure.
Stuff.
But yes, gazers, I hope you've enjoyed our little foray into the world of blind dates.
Yeah.
Join us next week for The Stud.
The Stud.
Give us a follow. Tell your friends. We're going to go off and finish our little champers, aren't we? And then...
Well, I don't know about you, but I've got a hot date with somebody called Wayne, who's a bus driver from Norwich. So let's see where that goes. We're off to Mauritius, darling.
Are you?
Yeah.
I'm married, so I can't do that kind of thing anymore.
Oh, wrong hand, show your ring. For the benefit, since this is not a visual podcast, David just held up his ring finger and it was the wrong hand, everybody. Draw from that your own conclusion. Oh, there it is, glinting at me. There it is.
Yeah, there you go.
Tap, 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 tap.
Platinum.
Tin. And on that bombshell, last cheers for the listeners.
Cheers, gazers.
Chin, chin,
Have a good
guys.
week. See you
Have
next
a good week. Au reservoir.
Au reservoir.